All right. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate all of you being here today, taking the time to come in and have a good conversation on these webinars. I think this is our fifth or sixth one, and we've been having some pretty good turnout and discussions. So I appreciate all of you being a part of it and making it worthwhile. Today, we've got a couple guest speakers, and it's been a minute since we did one of these. We're going to hear from Lee Worley. He's going to give us a recap of 2022, some of the great stuff that we did, 2023, looking forward, touch on a couple more updates that are kind of relevant right now to the apprenticeship. We've got Chris Berger on. He's going to give us, I was talking to him a few weeks ago, some conceptual ideas on how we can partner with local Department of Labor investigators, compliance officers and stuff in our area, and how maybe that our apprenticeships, local unions can partner with those individuals to do some really good work. So we're going to hear from him. I'll give you guys a grant update. I'll talk a little bit about the cross-laminated timber stuff, pre-apprenticeships. We're updating the IICB stuff, so we'll go over a little bit of that. Quarter's going to get into the WCP, WPQ1. We just talked a little bit about that. Brian Tannehill, he'll be on later to talk about the rigor and certification program, EPRI updates. And then we've got Michael Sampson going to go over a lot of the GWO, Regional Training Center, MSHA, stuff like that. Got a couple people letting in here. Hold on one second. Okay. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We'll try to get everybody out of here within an hour. And so with that, I will turn it over to Lee Worley. The floor is yours, my friend.
Hey, thanks, James. Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Had a good weekend. Just kind of give you, like James says, a recap of 2022. We had a great instructor conference last year in July. We probably were close to 80% participation. The apprenticeship competition went very well. We had very good participation there. Had a lot of positive comments regarding the apprenticeship coordinator meeting, as well as the overall event for the apprentices. Kevin Hilton actually has invited all the apprentices who competed in Denver to the Impact Conference next week in New Orleans. So I think maybe close to 55 competitors. You've got 42 commitments registered of the apprentices that are going to be there. He's got some special breakout sessions for them. And I've got one of them along with the rest of the apprenticeship and training staff. So among others, they should have a fun-filled week and exciting time at the Impact Conference. I know a lot of coordinators don't go to the Impact Conference. I remember when I sat in the coordinator seat, I think I went to one, maybe. Not really a big event for the coordinators, but it's a big event for Kevin Hilton and with the employers. Just remember the Impact Conference is geared toward the employers and maybe the end users instead of our own membership. So they've got actually, I think, the largest to date registered so far. So I was talking with my office manager last week. We will have the registration materials for the 39th Annual Instructor Conference ready to by mid-March. The dates are going to be July 17th to the 21st were the actual dates. We will send you notices on listserv when we're close to having the announcements. And then again, we will notify you by snail mail only regarding registration. We're going to get out of sending hard copies in the mail. So just be unaware of the listserv messages for conference breakout. If anybody's ever taken any computer courses in Ann Arbor, especially from Linda and Roman Meeks, I met with her. Actually, I took her class in the late 90s. I used to take computer classes from her years and years ago. I was having a conversation with her last summer, and I asked her, because she's taught at all 38 of them, and this will be her 39th year. I asked her, what's the difference between teaching the course, in the 80s and 90s, as compared to teaching the course today? And she said the biggest difference is back then, especially in the late 80s and 90s, computers was nice to know. And she goes, now it's a need to know thing. And I asked her, I said, well, I meant to ask you this over the years, Linda, and I apologize for being late, but I said, the class objective right now for what you have for your computer courses, should it be modified? what's the level of the new beginner at your course? And she goes, oh, the level is obviously a lot higher than it was years and years ago. So she actually, her and her husband, Roman, who co-teach the computer courses, 2 of them, they totally redid their 2 courses. And I do not have the information in front of me, but it will be spelled out in the course materials, what the new update is for her course. So it's no longer, this is a computer, this is how you turn it on, this is the mouse. She says, we're way past those days. And that was needed years ago, but not so much anymore. So she's updated her course and she's excited, and more information regarding the whole program in her courses coming in mid-March. Also, the foreman fall protection material that Steve Rank and his crew put together, we're going to incorporate that into the foreman curriculum. So it's not really he wanted me to make it a standalone course, but I kind of told him all fall protection course is geared for the new members, and having foreman responsibilities to a brand new member is just trying to put on a harness and do the right thing safety wise was probably not a thing for them right out of the chute. So we're going to incorporate that into the foreman materials. And especially since only a 4-hour presentation, we'll be able to tweak that a little bit with minimal interruption. One more thing regarding the Michigan program. As we make contact with the Washtenaw Community College and University of Michigan, WCC does not have their COVID protocols in place. They're done. They're over it, go on campus freely, no mask. However, the dorms at U of M still require, and I'm going to quote here, all participants and guests who stay overnight in the Michigan housing residence halls are required to be fully vaccinated for COVID-19. Medical and religious exemptions will be considered. So it's just like last year. You're going to have, they're not going to stop you on campus and provide proof. They're just asking us to ask you that if you plan on staying there, just the honor system and be vaccinated if you're going to stay there. So moving on. I met with General President Dean this morning, and he wanted me to remind all of you that he's still attending meetings with employers across the country, and he hopes that recruiting is still on everybody's agenda. He says the amount of work coming up is even greater than he thought. And he knows there's some slow pockets around the country, but he says it's coming, it's getting busy. And he's worried, just like every other trade, that if we're not getting new members and recruiting, the other trade's going to get them. So he says he knows it's a tough, it's not always the funnest thing we have, part of the coordinators going out there recruiting and attracting new members, but it's important that we man the work and we get our share of the members, because just remember, if we don't, somebody else will. It may be even our competition. Just briefly, speaking with Jason Corder, who's going to give you an update later on the WPQ1 update. I thank everybody who is taking the courses and taking this serious. It's a big, big deal. If you are giving welder qualification tests, you're going to have this endorsement. I asked Jason for a drop dead deadline. He did not have it, but he will expand a little bit on the whole endorsement here in a few minutes. So it's important, if you are a CWI and you are given qualification tests, please sign up for one of the prep courses and go back to your Promex Training Center and take the exam. It's real important. And I believe, James, actually, that's it. I covered everything. We're excited for this year. It's a busy year. There's lots of traveling going on, lots of conferences, a lot of speaking engagements. I'm excited about the Ironworkers and the Viper program. And James, forgive me, have we talked about Viper yet with this group?
No, we have not. That's definitely in your wheelhouse if you'd like to.
We can maybe give the long version later, but working with Viper, which is veteran internships, providing employment readiness. Met a veteran through James Owens and a few others from Alaska, and this IBEW member. He did 2 tours, I believe, overseas, and he was really disheartened and saddened by the number of veteran suicides, and he was deeply affected by one of the men in his group that he was in command with came back and committed suicide. And he says a lot of it has to do with just having a good job, good employment, some sort of future. So we are in the process of developing a relationship with Viper. James, I'll let you interject a few comments, and maybe we can give the long version later. So we're gonna partner with them and have a pre-apprenticeship program, registered pre-apprenticeship program with veterans transitioning, even if they're not transitioning, they're out of the trades, they want something to do to get a taste of the trades. We're going to do what we can to get them in the pre-apprenticeship and then give them direct entry upon completion of this 3 or 4 week program. I think, James, we're still looking at summer or fall for this first course, but I'll turn it over to you, maybe 1 or 2 comments, and then I know you got a busy agenda, and
okay,
let you go. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate it. Yeah. So the Viper in a nutshell is what we're really trying to do is, as we see this diversity and inclusion thing coming through and really kind of focusing on that as apprenticeship programs, we've seen some of the success across the country with a structured pre-apprenticeship. And so this partnership with Viper, the thought here is that we will conduct these pre-apprenticeships kind of in the capacity of a recognized, registered international pre-apprenticeship program. We would do them at the regional training centers or in your local areas, depending on where the military bases and stuff were. And then these veterans transitioning from active duty to the workforce, they may not want to live in those local areas where they're being released at. And so what this does is it captures those individuals in that transition period, provides them the supportive services, runs them through a pre-apprenticeship program. Upon the completion of that pre-apprenticeship program, 4 weeks, they will be direct entered to registered apprenticeships across the country. And so that's where really all of you coordinators and your JATC programs come into play to really make this thing work, is having a system set up to where we're all working together to make sure that these veterans get to go to the local areas they want to get registered into the apprenticeship programs that they're looking at and get placed to work. So we'll have a ton more on that as we kind of move forward, but I think we're getting ready to pilot the first class probably here this fall. Local 86 out of Seattle. We're talking to district council president and coordinator, business managers and stuff right now to kind of get that on track. So it will definitely be becoming a more heavy conversation, especially in these webinars. So into the grant update. So we've been having a lot of activity across the country on grant funding. We are seeing a lot of our JATC programs, regional areas, training directors really just taking the bull by the horns and going after these grant monies, which is really good to see. And something that we're seeing kind of develop on the grant front is a lot of these JATC programs are finding a local grant writer and employing that grant writer during the duration of the application process for the grant funding, and they're getting some really good results. I think we had $1 million grant awarded over in I believe it was local 549. I think they got, if I was saying, kind of in the grant space, we're seeing a lot of good grant work being done. A lot of programs are hiring grant writers, which I really advise is a good avenue, especially if you're kind of new to the thing. It can be a good space. I mean, you talk about getting $1 million grant, what'd you pay a grant writer for? $8,000, whatever, to come in and write the grant for you. You got $1 million, or in the case of Sean Neely, $550,000 for GWO training. It cost him $4,000 to pay a grant writer to come in and write that grant and get awarded. So don't be afraid to find those resources in your local area. We talked a little bit earlier, pre-apprenticeship, the Viper program. I'm working with some of our political department and some of our people around the country. What I would like to see is an official Department of Labor registration for pre-apprenticeship programs. We have registered apprenticeship programs all across the country. We have 1,000,001 pre-apprenticeship programs that get all of this grant funding, that claim to do all of this training and get people into apprenticeships. And it's just not the case. They use the majority of the grant funding to run their programs and pay their salaries and wages. And there's just a lot of bad players. So my long-term vision is to get an actual recognition through Department of Labor for a recognized pre-apprenticeship program, and then have the Ironworkers be one of the first ones to the table. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing. What that's going to allow us to do for all of our training programs across the country is we will be able to host regional grant-funded pre-apprenticeship cohorts that you will be able to send your individuals to or host yourself. And then these people would get direct entry into different programs across the country. So you're not having to see all the burden of putting a cohort of 14 individuals on and then placing all 14 of those people to work. So kind of the best of both worlds. The cross laminated timber, I'm going to transition into that a little bit. I'm going to share my screen real quick. We're kind of getting some pickup on this CLT. If you haven't seen it in your area, you should be able to see my screen now. This is basically incapacities taking the place of structural steel, columns and beams. They kind of just do things out of wood. A lot of our contractors are kind of bidding on this work. We don't have a lot of training in place for this work. And so what we did is the training.
Did we lose our host?
No, I'm back.
Okay.
That was weird. It just kind of glitched out and said I was muted. So anyway, sharing this screen real quick, just so you guys can kind of see the density of the cross laminated timber work across the country. We reached out to this Woodworks Council. They provide the curriculum. They have access to the mock-ups. And so you'll be able to kind of see all that. So that was kind of one thing that we were interested in. If you have any need to have access to this cross laminated timber, not only the training curriculum modules, but also the mock-ups. I think the mock-ups are about $35,000. We can look, I know some areas are looking at RAB grants and grant funding to offset the cost of these. But if you do see it in your area or you have a need for it, we do have resources for you. So reach out to somebody in the National Training Fund and we will get that for you. We recently, I'll just cover it because I'm probably going to be the one that's sending out or working on the memo, but we recently, National Training Fund went through and kind of revamped and redid the IICB audit process and how the IICB manual is written and how we conduct audits. And so there's going to be some changes coming down the line to that program that we're going to be making everybody aware to. We just kind of got done going through and drafting all of that stuff up, finalizing some of the changes, updating to the new cycles and things like that. So be ready for that. That'll be coming out pretty soon. And I think that's about all I got. Any questions on grant funding, pre-apprenticeships, Viper, anything like that? Okay. If you don't, now that's cool. If you think of something later, shoot me an email and reach out to me and we'll chitty chat. But I would strongly advise that everybody be, at least contemplating or thinking about grant funding utilization. There's a ton of money right now. It's going to continue to be flowing into our states from all over the country. And, if we're not picking up that money and using it to market and promote our programs, our competitors are, and I can guarantee you they do. So that's it for me.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
That map that you showed, was that the contractors that are doing that work, or?
So those were job specific. So those are all those actual, every little dot was a CLT job that has taken place in the area. And so if you look at it, we really thought in the beginning, we thought, well, it's just pockets of this Pacific Northwest and there's a couple little pockets here. But if you actually look at that map, the majority of CLT work is taking place on the East Coast. I mean, there is a massive, massive amount of work over there on CLT projects, something to like, 600 projects currently going right now. If I'm looking at the map, Q3 of 2022, they had 673 CLT projects going across the country.
Can you send us some of that information? I'd like to try to get it to the right people.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will add that document to the calendar event, and then you all will have access to download it. So we should be good. And if you don't get it, just hit me up an email. I can get you. I got a whole email we drafted that tells you who to contact, when to contact them, how much the stuff costs, where to get it, what the training looks like. So if you're interested in that, just shoot me an email. I'll get you a whole package. No big deal. Okay. Let's see. What do we got? 1034. All right, moving on. We are going to jump over to Jason Quarter, WCP, WPQ1, QC47, and app update. Quarter?
Hey, how's everybody going? So real quick, our department and the IT is working towards finalizing the new WCP site. We should be able to have that thing rolling just after Michigan. We'll get more into that before and during Michigan times. With the WPQ1, we're rolling on with it. It's keep going. I still think it's a very important thing that we should be getting on with and sending your test supervisors to get that endorsement. We've had one class so far, and I'm getting, the big concern for me is guys that are taking the prep course, and then when they're finishing the class, they're not almost immediately going to take the test. They're waiting. I've talked to a few guys and they're like, oh, I don't have time, or my guy just says he doesn't have enough time. The longer you wait, the possibility of not passing that exam is higher. And it's a $400 exam. Either you're paying for it, your JTC, or that member is paying for it out of his pockets. Just pay and make the guy go do it. There's no use in sending somebody to take an exam 6 months to a year later and then fail it. So as soon as they take this prep course, try to get them scheduled with the Prometrics. AWS has told me that they're 4 to 6 weeks before doing it because they're trying to process. There's a lot of other people that are trying to jump into those classes and get ahead of the curve. We need to be really on that and get that in there. Now, the update with the QC47, as I talked to a friend of mine over at AWS and asked him, where are we at with this new code book? When is it going to be published? Blah, blah, blah. He said if it was not in printing, it should be printing as of a week. And that was about 3 weeks ago. So they are printing it right now and plan on it coming out the first quarter of this year. So I would suggest really, really getting on that. Now, does anybody have any questions on the app or the QC47 stuff?
I got a question for you. Is there anybody on this call who's been to the Prometric site and taken the exam already? Kind of raise your hand if you have. I may reach out to you for a couple quick questions. Okay. And is the process, I take it Prometric is at every major city, is that correct, Jason?
Yeah.
Has anybody had trouble scheduling one after reaching out to Prometric? Reach out to Jason or me and let us know. I'm just interested in if there's a downside to this. So thanks.
I would just make a quick statement for everybody. You know, when you purchase that from AWS, typically, at least in my experience, it was 2 weeks before I actually got my code to schedule at Prometrics. We have pretty good options here in the Pacific Northwest, but I was still 2 or 3 weeks out to be able to even schedule to sit for the exam. So overall, you're looking at a 5 to 6 week process. So in my opinion, if somebody is going to take a prep course, before you take that prep course, maybe a week or two before, you should be starting that process of scheduling that exam so that when you get into that prep course, it is kind of already scheduled for you to take shortly after you sit for those courses. So just some advice.
Yeah, good point.
I agree. And then as in the app, I sent out a push notification this morning. If everybody could go back into the app, if you haven't yet, and update your profile with your local apprenticeships, city and state, that'll help us in the long run when we want to send in the individual a specific push notification. Hey, you have to do your IICB in 2 months, or welding WCP audit. We can send it directly to you instead of trying to send it out in listserv or so, just as a reminder. Other than that, does anybody have anything else they'd like to see the app do, or any information on it that they would like to see more of? I'm going to take that as a no.
I'm going to take that as the app is perfect and nobody's got any issues.
They just don't want to say it right now. I'll get a text message later. So I think I'm good there. Does anybody have any other kind of questions for me? bookstore related or anything else.
I got a quick question, Jason. How's the you still working on the OJT part for the app? How's that coming along?
It's coming along. I'm still working on it with Steve and them. So once that is done, we might try to guinea pig it a little bit and then cut it loose for the locals to put inside of their own app, portion of their local app.
And then quickly, Jason, is there a new welding course? I should know this, but I'm drawing a blank. Do we have a new welding course offered this year in Michigan?
Yeah, we have the Weld 15, which is the pipe certification, smaller diameter pipe that we're putting out there, and we're doing that to try to keep ahead of the all the offshore wind stuff. Most of it's pretty big pipe, but just in case we have anything that's coming up, it's a smaller diameter pipe. I want to make sure that people going to Michigan are trained up on how to do that so they can take that home to their home locals.
Great, thank you.
Jason, I have a question. Pete Teglin, Local 512. What's the difference between WPQ1 and QC47? Are they related, or I'm missing something?
So the QC47 is the actual code book. They're taking parts of QC. They're taking QC4 and QC7, the two different code books, and they're combining them. So QC4 and QC7 will go away, and it'll just be QC47. And within that, they're going to change the way that the accredited testing facilities have to do certain things.
Okay, and that's in no way related to WPQ1, or I mean, it kind of will be, but it's not an endorsement, I guess is what I'm getting at.
The QC47 is not an endorsement. That's a code book specifically, but the WPQ1 is an endorsement that the QC47 will require.
Okay, I got you. Now I got you. Thank you.
So the nice thing about that again is the QC4, the WPQ1, anybody that takes that will qualify you for your 9-year recertification. So that's a good option to do there. The other thing is I would like to point out is on the bookstore, if you go into the admin resources and then admin miscellaneous, there is a file in there for IICP and WCP files. We worked on that up. Brian, Mike, and Lee, James worked on that to try to put those files together to make it easier for the coordinators to do their IECPs. And then there's also another one in their folder for the WCP. And if you guys decide to start using all digital in your WCP folders, you may do that. Those are files in there that you can look at and utilize. I'm not ever gonna say it's mandatory, you got to go all paper or all electric. It's up to you. Just I'm telling you, you got to do one or the other. If you're doing all paper right now and you like it, then I'm okay with it. If you're doing all electric right now, then do it all digital electric. That's fine with me too.
Does that include backdating or just from now on, if we go all digital?
I would say you can start today and keep on, stop your records the way they are now and move forward. That I'm okay with that. The big thing is if AWS decides they want to come in and audit any of our programs, they can. So I just want to make sure that we're not doing half of it in digital and half of it in paper form, and then that's going to make it really hard for one of their auditors to look at everything, or one of us. So one or the other, start when you want to.
All right.
And I'm always there to be able to take calls and ask questions or advice on how you should do things.
Okay.
One last question, Mr. Corder.
Yep.
Joe Derby, Local 67, Des Moines, Iowa, 1331-425. I was wanting to know if you guys were anticipating shipping out the current log books again. You guys have always done that, and it's been a nice, lazy way for me not to have to do all that research. Are you going to continue to supply that, or should I just get off my tail and do that myself?
Which logbooks are you talking?
the current editions of all of the code books. I apologize, not logbook, code book.
I sent one out earlier this year on the listserv, I believe. And if anybody needs that, let me know. I'll just send it out again on the most current. The one current code book I see that a lot of people are coming back on is the ANSI code, which is a 2021, I think it is. And the B 5.2, I think, is a 2021 as well.
Make sure you're updated.
Thank
Perfect.
you, sir.
All right, Quarter, appreciate it. We're going to move to Tannehill. Give us a little update if he's got something on the certified rigger EPRI or anything that he's working on. And you are muted. There you go.
So I don't have a lot, but what I do have is anybody who is in an area that is currently working on GWO testing for their membership, or are going to see that they're going to need to be testing members for GWO compliance job or compliant jobs. Know this, they are requiring in one area right now that's doing all of the GWO work. They're requiring riggers to have certifications. So if your guys are not certified, then you're going to have to get them certified. And right now, in that area, they're talking about NCCCO certifications. So what we want to do is get enough of our guys set so that they have to take our certification too. There's no reason why they shouldn't. CCO is a brand, just like we are, you know, when it comes to rigging certifications. So now, although we think ours is better and we can prove it, we can't say that theirs isn't valid, right? So because they have a valid certification and it's accepted, and ours is a valid certification, but it is not expressly written into the contract documents, we need to make sure that it is. And so our guys aren't going out and having to pay $600 or $700 to get a rigging certification so they can go to work. They can come to our local union. They can spend 4 hours of time to take the exam. They can take the exam, get the certification, and they can go to work. And all it's going to cost them is 4 hours of their time. 2 hours for the written exam, 2 hours for the practical exam. So that work is going to start moving around the country. You know, it's starting up in the Northeast right now. My assumption is that it's going to move from there to the West Coast, if it's not already in some degree already starting. And then it's going to end up in the Gulf of Mexico. So it's going to affect a large portion of our membership. So by not having that certification available at your apprenticeship, really we're doing our guys a disservice by making them go out and spend their own money, or, you know, use an impact grant money, you know, that could be used in other places to pay for it, to pay for a certification that we already should be offering. So let's get ahead of the curve a little bit. If you need some help, there's some classes already this year that have been canceled. Let's not cancel anymore. Get your guys to a class, whether it's in Washington, DC at Local 5, or at Local 63 in Chicago, or in Benicia, California, which is not always sunny and 75, but it's always nice out there. You know, get them to a place where they can take the exam and get back to your local and start putting that to work. Any questions about the IICB rigging before I go? None? Okay. That's all I got, James.
Thank you, Tannehill. Appreciate that. Yeah, if you got any questions about that certified rigger, reach out to Tannehill. It's a good program. A lot of our programs are already kind of set up to conduct and proctor the tests. So a little bit of study, you should be good to go. All right. So last but not least, I want to make sure we give some time for open conversation. We're going to turn it over to Mr. Michael Sampson, who is insanely busy with our Global Wind Organization, regional training centers, and MSHA. He's going to give us a little update on what he's got on his plate. Sampson, you're up, buddy. There he goes. All right. You're muted too, my friend, just FYI.
Yep, thank you very much. I just sent you guys a screenshot. The GWO real quick, we're kind of getting in the final stages. It was on a Zoom meeting today with Local 5. I see they're in the room with Rick Sullivan. Those of you that remember Rick Sullivan, he did a lot of the paperwork and developing the curriculum and everything for us. Did an excellent job. Now all I have to do is go through the documents and learn them and make some edits and stuff like that. But we're expecting we're doing a practice audit with the organization that we contracted with to help us get through it the week of March 13th. That's again going to be at Local 5. And they put forth a phenomenal effort. They got a phenomenal facility. Those of you who haven't been to the regional training center there, they got a phenomenal facility. And they've got a great mock-up for the GWO. They got, I mean, just well organized program with the GWO. Great asset working with me. And as they said, this GWO is going to be moving on. It's on the East Coast. We're working with Local 40 already to kind of get. They're working on grants. They've already got trainers kind of going through the process for getting GWO. And it's probably going to go around in the Gulf before, and then down around Texas, eventually on the West Coast. I even heard the Great Lakes. And of course, I don't know if we got any Canadians in here, but going to be up in Canada as well. So it's big process, a lot of tasks, still working out a lot of ins and outs on how we're going to do things with the GWO. If you hear GWO, Global Wind Organization, that's the offshore. We keep saying offshore wind, but it's actually applies to onshore wind as well. The only component they don't have to do is the sea survival. There's the material handling, working at heights, first aid, and in there. So they just don't have to do the sea survival. So we've actually got interest in Indiana and northern New York as well for GWO. But if you hear about GWO, please give me a call. Doesn't hurt to start like James is talking about, getting the process started with grants and that. The training the train the trainer is quite extensive, as Local 5 can tell you. It's about a 4 to 5 week commitment for your trainers just to get GWO certified to teach the class. So this may be something that you organize as a district council through your RABs, because it is a large commitment financially and for your trainers. So if there's any questions on GWO, please feel to reach out to me. MSHA, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about MSHA. Please reach out. We're working with MSHA, the Mine Safety and Health Administration. We had an agreement years ago. It actually dated back to 2000, where they would recognize certain OSHA 10s, first aid, and stuff like that, and we'd get credit. And we had a train-the-trainer course in Michigan. We kind of quit offering that train-the-trainer in Michigan because MSHA was, in order for a trainer to get approved, they had to be approved by an area director. So what I would like any of you coordinators or your neighboring coordinators that you might, that's not on the meeting, maybe reach out to them. If they had a trainer that was denied by their area director, could you please get a hold of me? We're working with the NAB2, the North American Building Trades. We're going as one big unit. Several of us have had an agreement with them in 2000 too. And with the administration changes and stuff like that, and area directors changing and them not being familiar with the MSHA program, they were denying a lot of our instructors, and that's across the board, all the trade, UA, laborers, the bricklayers, finishers, all of them were getting people denied. So they pretty much, all of us have quit doing MSHA training, but we've revisited that this year. We've actually had some meetings with the current head of MSHA, and he's going to have a meeting with his area directors. And what they're asking for from us is anybody that was denied the area they were. So I just need to know what local they were from. And if you had if you, as close as you could, whether it's probably around 2016 to 2018, 2019, I think, we started having these troubles. But if you know of any trainers that were denied the year and your local you're from, please forward that to me so we can get that to them. And we're going to have a meeting, virtual meeting with MSHA here in about 3 weeks. And if I could get that information, it would help strengthen our case of why we need to revisit this and get this these training plans set back in place. So is there any on here that know of anybody that was denied, trainers that were trained in their area? No? Okay. Well, reach out to your area coordinators too, or your prior coordinator. Like I said, it was like the 2016 to 2019 range, 18, 19 would have been the range of when they denied them. So it'd be extremely helpful to me. Any questions on the MSHA before I switch gears again? Going to talk about, if you have any, I'm going to ask if you have any apprentices, recent graduates that were H2H, helmets to hard hat. Helmets to hard hat seems to be more active in certain areas than others. So I got to do an article. I need one by the spring. So if you've got like an outstanding apprentice that went H2H, helmets to hard hats, a veteran, please let me know so I can get my article together and get it out by spring. And one last thing, I've been getting phone calls that we've been getting phone calls in the training department about the laminated timbers and also the solar. I know James Owens has been in communications with the California District Council and kind of working on maybe getting a mock-up or some training there. But our jurisdictional department is actually within the Ironworkers would like to know, maybe get to your business manager, district council presidents, if you've done some solar stuff in your area. They need to know, in particular the Midwest. I know I've gotten phone calls about the Indianapolis or Indiana, West Virginia area and Kentucky areas, because there's some big solar projects coming up there and they're wanting to know about training. So please share that information with your business manager and your district council president, especially so they can share it forward it on to the jurisdictional department. So that's mine, kind of short and brief. Any questions on any solar or anything like that?
All right. Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mike? All right. I think one thing to note that I'll just cover, I know I beat the grant drum like really hard and loud, and, I just think it's so important. And, when Mike talks about that GWO and being accredited, we used that local 5 as a great example. I just want everybody to know that a lot of that work that they did on that GWO front and getting accredited was due to a grant that, their local leadership put in for and worked hard on and got awarded a bunch of money to help facilitate some of that. So one thing that I'll say with the GWO moving forward, if you do start to hear about it in your local areas, we have a great example and a tool that we can use in local 5, right? They've been through this process. They know all the in and outs. They know what to look out for. I wish I'd have known this then now. You know, so this whole thing is about networking and working together and sharing information, and it really kind of helps us all. So keep that in mind as we move forward. So we'll kind of move into closing remarks here. Lee Worley, you got anything you want to say kind of in closing before we open it up?
No, thanks, James, for putting these together. I think it's a great tool for all of us. You know, whether you're online or participate monthly or every other month is great, but there's a lot of good information, and I'm excited about this direction. So thank you, James.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Lee. Any questions before we stop recording? And I will kind of end with just a little comment. Make sure that all of these videos will be uploaded to YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel. We've got a bunch of social media channels, but all of these will be compartmentalized, put into a YouTube series, and they're chaptered too. So if you want to go to any of our different presentations or things we talked about today, you can just skip forward to that information. Oh, hey, what was that Chris talked about? Oh, well, I can just go see Chris's section in that video. So those will be available. I'll send that link out to everybody. Does anybody have any questions as we open this thing up? Okay. All right. So
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Before we got some apprentice ironworker stickers, and I talked with Lee and he got me some more at a different time. Can we get some more of them?
You said Ironworker stickers?
The ironworker apprentice stickers, the orange ones.
Yes.
I think, yes, you can. You contact the mail room down at headquarters, and I'm not sure how they get that request. Quarter, is it on the bookstore at all, those stickers? It seems like they would be if it's apprenticeship. I'll get back. Who was that? Who asked that question? Was that you, Thomas? I'll find out, and I'll post it on listserv how you get that stuff.
Yeah, actually, I think Derek Sample was another one that was, or Richard Watford was wanting to know too.
Okay, I'll put it out there in a message.
Perfect. Okay, so it is top of the hour, 11 o'clock. I'm going to stop recording, and I appreciate all of you being here, being part of the conversation. You know, we're all working hard and doing good stuff. So